Ducks might look like harmless creatures paddling across a quiet pond, but their story goes far deeper into the shadows of Earth's history than you might ever have guessed. These feathered wanderers, part of the Anatidae family, carry echoes of a prehistoric era when dinosaurs still roamed and continents were just beginning to take shape. In fact, some experts insist that if you trace the lineage of ducks back far enough, you'll find a remarkable link to ancient birds that endured cataclysmic extinctions, adapted to freezing climates, and spread to nearly every corner of the planet. Most people who watch ducks glide on water have no idea how old and resilient this lineage truly is. There's a certain comfort in their presence, a serene flock on a lake, an iconic quack echoing across the reeds at sunset. Yet behind this calm facade, there's a gripping tale of survival, expansion, and controversy, complete with fossil evidence that has stunned paleontologists. And what's most surprising is the revelation that humans themselves have changed the fate of ducks in both beneficial and destructive ways, propelling these birds into new frontiers while also driving entire species to vanish forever. But let's begin with a long-overlooked historical twist. The possibility that a bird closely related to today's ducks lived at the same time as the dinosaurs. Paleontologists uncovered something startling in Antarctica, a fossil of a creature called Vegavis. This mysterious species once thrived near the end of the Mesozoic era, right before that catastrophic event that spelled doom for countless gigantic beasts. Vegavis is not considered a direct ancestor of modern ducks, but the link is still incredibly close. Researchers discovered that it possessed a complex syrinx, the organ responsible for producing vocal sounds in birds. That means Vegavis could have honked, quacked, or made noise strikingly similar to what we might hear among waterfowl today. This lone fossil suggests that ducks, or at least a cousin of their ancient family, were already cutting through frigid waters and honking away while Tyrannosaurus rex stalked the land. It's tough to overstate how significant this discovery is. Early bird species like Archaeopteryx captured the public's imagination, but those were more primitive flyers, lacking the modern bird features that ducks now possess. Vegavis, on the other hand, signals that the lineage leading to ducks wasn't just some late arrival waiting for the dinosaurs to die off. They were already around, quietly biding their time as huge reptiles dominated the planet. Naturally, this revelation sparked heated debates among paleontologists. Could waterfowl-like birds have been more widespread during the late Cretaceous period than we ever suspected? Some researchers went so far as to claim that modern bird groups managed to persist and diversify under the noses of apex predators, setting the stage for the avian boom that followed the mass extinction. Others argue that the fossil record is incomplete, that Vegavis might be an evolutionary offshoot that doesn't tell the full story. Regardless, this prehistoric evidence suggests that ducks' ancestors were no mere footnotes in the grand saga of evolution. And that's hardly the only mind-bending piece of evidence. If you scan the scientific literature, you'll find references to other Mesozoic and early Cenozoic creatures that flesh out the larger ducktail. Conflicto antarcticus, for instance, possessed a body shape reminiscent of modern waterfowl with an elongated bill. Polarornis, another Antarctic discovery, likely led a mostly aquatic lifestyle akin to penguins, even though it appears to have had more in common with ducks. Meanwhile, genera like Anatidae turned up in New Jersey, suggesting that proto-ducks spread across the globe faster than anyone previously thought. Then there's Presbjornis in what is now Wyoming, a bird once compared to a flamingo because it filtered food from large bodies of water. Taken together, these fossils hint at a diverse, adaptable group that was comfortable colonizing new habitats and seizing ecological opportunities at every turn. But that wasn't the whole story. The real explosion of duck variety took place after the dinosaurs vanished, during the Cenozoic era. Freed from the shadow of the giant reptiles, birds evolved at a stunning pace. The Anatidae family, which includes ducks, geese, and swans, ultimately found a home on every continent except Antarctica. It's truly astonishing that a single family of birds can be just as comfortable in tropical wetlands as they are in the chilly steppe of northern Canada. And we've only begun to scrape the surface of the historical record. Paleontologists keep unearthing extinct anatids in nearly every region of the planet. Australodorna, from Australia, existed some 26 million years ago. In New Zealand, 19 million-year-old remains of Manu heracea add to the puzzle. There are also Japan's early swan Anatidae and Africa's only known swan, Afrocygnus, which lived around 7 million years ago. Each of these ancient species showcased its own adaptations, behaviors, and ecological niches, weaving a sprawling tapestry of evolutionary success. Yet not everything about the duck story is triumphant. Many of these species, and others more recently identified, have vanished entirely, leaving behind only skeletal traces and a few records in dusty journals. Even after modern humans arrived on the scene, ducks continued to suffer waves of extinctions. In fact, in the last few centuries alone, numerous distinct types of ducks and closely related birds have been wiped out. The Labrador duck disappeared by 1875, with many blaming overhunting for its decline. The Mergus australis, or Auckland Islands merganser, vanished by 1902, likely due to invasive predators and human activities. On Reunion Island and Mauritius, white-winged ducks were hunted into oblivion by around the end of the 17th century, and on the Marianas, Anas ustaleti managed to persist until 1981, before the relentless expansion of civilization sealed its fate. To many, these extinctions are a DM tragedy, a sobering reminder of how quickly human actions can disrupt delicate ecosystems. Yet debates rage on about whether certain environmental changes might have already doomed these ducks. It's easy to blame hunters, trappers, or invasive predators, but some scientists wonder if shifts in climate or disease outbreaks might have contributed. Whichever side you believe, it's clear that many once thriving duck species have disappeared in the blink of an evolutionary eye. And the losses continue. There are always rumors of unidentified duck populations suddenly dying off in remote habitats. Some local communities even claim that undiscovered species are perched on the brink of existence. The real question is whether we'll ever see them, or whether they will vanish without us even knowing they were there. Meanwhile, the flip side of human interference tells a different story: domestication. Ducks have been companions to agricultural societies for thousands of years, with evidence of domestication showing up in Egyptian hieroglyphs that date back about 4,000 years. Chinese records suggest they integrated ducks into their farming practices by at least 2,500 years ago. And in the pre-Columbian Americas, from Mexico to Peru, indigenous peoples also raised ducks for both food and cultural significance. Most domesticated ducks retain the essential traits of the wild mallard: resilience, sociability, and an odd dependence on humans for food. Over many centuries, these traits have been exaggerated by selective breeding. Breeders picked the plumpest, most docile birds to ensure a steady supply of meat and eggs. The most widespread example is the Pekin duck, originally from China, which soared in popularity when it reached western shores. By 1878, Pekins were winning admirers at poultry exhibitions in Europe and the Americas. To this day, their white plumage, hardy nature, and fast growth rate make them the go-to choice for farms around the world. But is that a blessing or a curse? Critics of large-scale duck farming point to cramped living conditions and diseases that can run rampant in close quarters. Controversies swirl around whether these breeding practices might weaken the species' overall genetic health, making them more susceptible to certain illnesses. Some argue that as Pekin ducks continue to dominate the markets, less common or heritage breeds risk being sidelined or even lost. Meanwhile, a separate branch of domestication gave rise to the Creole duck, also called the Muscovy in some places. This breed hails from the Americas, boasting a more robust frame, lower fat content, and an ability to thrive in diverse environments without as much human oversight. Others are drawn to ornamental ducks like the Carolina wood duck, prized for the male's vibrant colors that shimmer in the sunlight. Underneath all this variety, the core theme is the same. Humans have molded ducks to fit our needs, whether for sustenance, decoration, or commercial profit. But that's not where the controversy ends. There's a persistent debate about how these domestic ducks, once released into the wild or crossing paths with wild populations, might disrupt native ecosystems. Some suspect that hybridization events could threaten the genetic integrity of wild species, while others warn of widespread disease transmission that can hurt not just other ducks, but also poultry farms, leading to mass cullings to contain potential outbreaks. Think avian influenza. Over the past few decades, occasional upticks in outbreaks have forced governments and farmers to kill huge numbers of birds in a desperate attempt to stop the spread. Activists call it cruel, Farmers insist it's necessary, and scientists remain divided on the best approach to handle these crises. All of this is part of a larger conversation about whether we're doing enough to safeguard wild ducks, and indeed all waterfowl, in the face of global challenges. The complexities extend beyond simple biology. Ducks often feature in local customs, festivals, and even spiritual practices. In certain places, the image of a duck conjures thoughts of prosperity, fertility, or the changing of the seasons. As a result, attempts to regulate hunting or restrict duck farming sometimes spark public outcry. Then there's the push and pull among conservationists who want to protect wetlands and local authorities who see those same wetlands as prime real estate for development. The question of how to balance economic growth and ecological preservation looms over many communities worldwide, adding another layer of drama to the duck story. With all these twists and turns, it's clear that the history of ducks is anything but mundane. From the days when Vegavis may have quacked alongside dinosaurs, to the frantic expansions of the Cenozoic era, to the heartbreaking extinctions in modern times, ducks have seen it all. They adapted to scorching deserts, frozen tundras, and secluded islands. They were worshipped, hunted, domesticated, and at times, nearly obliterated by human hands. Some soared back to reclaim habitats while others quietly slipped into the footnotes of history. The biggest revelation might be how little attention many of us pay to these birds. We feed them breadcrumbs at a local pond, never suspecting that the unassuming mallard gliding by could be a living fossil of sorts, a creature whose ancestors squawked at apex predators millions of years ago. But perhaps the most shocking truth is that this story isn't over. With ongoing climate change, we're seeing shifts in migration patterns and breeding seasons. Droughts can dry up wetlands that countless ducks rely on for nesting, while extreme weather events can devastate entire populations overnight. In some regions, rising temperatures enable parasites and pathogens to spread to new places, placing ducks in the crosshairs of emerging diseases. On the other hand, philanthropic organizations and conservation groups are stepping up. They're purchasing and restoring wetlands, creating protected refuges, and encouraging sustainable hunting regulations. Such actions spark new debates about how much interference is too much and whether humans should intervene at all. Still, many conservationists argue it's our moral obligation to correct the damage we've done.